Welcome to our special Money and Esports series on Sports Geek. In this episode, I chat with Rob O'Gorman from Tennis Australia about the very successful Fortnite Summer Smash.
Welcome to Sports Geek, the podcast built for sports digital and sports business professionals. And now, here's your host who's about to take down the Baron, Sean Callanan.
Thanks, DJ Joel. My name is Sean Callanan. You can find me on all social media platforms at Sean Callanan, and also via both of my websites, sportsgeekhq.com, where Sports Geek Podcast is hosted, and also this specific esports series on Sports Geek, I should say, sgesports.com. And also, as always, you can follow and meet my esports team, Gravitas, at gravitas.gg. We'll actually be at Melbourne Olympic Park, the site of the Australian Open, that I do chat to Rob O'Gorman in this episode. This chat was hosted at the Money and Esports event in Sydney on August 9. Rob and I chat about the very successful Fortnite Summer Smash that took place at Margaret Court Arena at the Australian Open, at the current, this year's Australian Open. Melbourne Esports Open will be held at the same venue across Rod Laver Arena, Margaret Court Arena and Melbourne Arena. We'd love to see you there. If you're going to Melbourne Esports Open, please let me know. We are hosting a guided tour explaining the world of esports and gaming to people attending. So if you're interested in the world of esports and trying to figure out what it is, you're more than welcome to come along to the Melbourne Esports Open. There'll be a lot on offer. But if you want to learn a little bit more and get a guided tour from myself and my GM of esports, Brandon Defina, who is a former pro player, please go to sgesports.com/MEO tour to book in your spot. They will be limited. We will not be taking a lot of people around. We don't want to have a big group, but we'll be able to explain to you the different titles, the different audiences, and how the different leagues work. So if you're interested, go to sgesports.com/MEO tour. Now, please enjoy my chat with Rob O'Gorman from Tennis Australia. And I'm going to invite Rob O'Gorman from Tennis Australia. Can you please welcome Rob to the stage? Welcome. Take a seat.
Thank you.
Your mic should be on. Let's just talk into it and we'll see it is.
G'day. Hello.
There we go. First of all, what's your role at Tennis?
Yeah, so I'm a manager of production, so probably in the past more video and event production, but in the last 12, 18 months we've made a distinct focus to understand and make an entry into the esports and innovation and video gaming space, which is, my focus sort of going forward.
So I wanted to talk about the Fortnite Summer Smash. If I haven't broken the clicker, we should get an impression of what it looked like. So that's it. So when did you make the announcement? Like how quick? So the Aussie Open's on in January, and I know I became an esports owner in November.
Yeah.
Brandon, my GM, is putting together a League of Legends team, and then halfway, maybe nearly late November, he says we need to get Fortnite stars. There's going to be a tournament at Australian Open, which is 6 weeks out. So
yeah, so we certainly didn't intend to announce so late. That was we had to get just all of us on the same page.
Yep.
We had to prove almost to each other, Epic Games, ourselves, the guys from ESL that did a brilliant job, and ultimately Fortnite's very new in a competitive gaming space.
Yep.
So, and never been done before on this scale in Australia. So we had to do a full-scale rehearsal in ESL studios in early January. Okay. Ultimately, because we all wanted to make sure it was going to work. So that's the complexity, and it's improved even with the World Cup just gone.
Yeah. So before even we get into the whys and wherefores, just logistically. So this weekend, Australia's going to... Where's the other video? Is the other video after this one?
Yeah. We can start with this.
So this weekend, Australia... All right. So, because we wanted to show the cool bump in. But let's talk about these guys after this video.
So this weekend, Australia's getting its first ever Fortnite tournament.
Invited me and a few other people to come play in a Fortnite charity event.
So we are now leaving Brisbane, flying over to Melbourne for the Fortnite Summer Smash. There's a $400,000 tournament, take her money, and then there's another tournament, it's a duos, $100,000 for charity.
You're a professional Fortnite player. There's $100,000 line.
Oh my god.
Look you down and start the line.
Alright, guys, say something to the vlog. What's up? It's a bit of a riot out here.
I think I would follow you. We can follow you.
Go into the bush.
Alright, well, I got the bush. I like that.
We're about to head out for the front. This is it. That's what it is. This is like everything. Remember what is it all? We are underway. $100,000 on the line here. 5% to kick us off.
I'm just keen to just jump in and get started.
Eliminates himself with a rocket to the face.
I thought I'd do better. I looked at the guys next to me, Devin and Korea, they're unbelievable. Yeah, I think I'm a bit out of my league here for sure.
How did you do? Please survive.
He hit a 1 versus 1. It all comes down to this. And he also has to help the magic. The shot across. It's the fresh agent. Finds the victory on 14. Game action. What was the fresh agent? And Jason Newton.
So you wouldn't know from that there's a major tennis tournament happening around that. How did the discussions go, or how did you even get started in, hey, we want to have a Fortnite tournament in the middle of the Aussie Open?
Yeah, so we, over a number of years with the Open, it's grown so much, and we've introduced much more beyond sports. So our business likes to talk about it as the biggest sporting and entertainment event globally in January. And we've introduced music essentially and new acts. We have a whole music stage that it used to be one concert, it's now 15 across the fortnight. So much like that, in the same vein, we have a whole kids ballpark area, we have a whole food focus, different restaurants on site. We almost went into the esports actually 2 or 3 years ago, but it didn't eventuate.
Yep.
It was more probably a corporate, maybe more like MEO. It didn't eventuate, it just didn't get off the ground. So, and in the last 12 months, we have opportunity the second week of the Open. It's always been our challenge to drive new audience and in different ways. The tennis drops off, we have other stadiums available, and this year we forced the issue, particularly with Margaret Court Arena. And we're able to, I suppose, convince everyone. They like to have the courts available just in case for whatever reasons, but we made a decision this year to the end of the Thursday night before the finals weekend, last ball hit, we had 36 hours to get to the arena transformed from a tennis court into a which is what it started like this. So the last ball was hit late Thursday night, and on Saturday morning we had 500 players coming through for qualifying events. Whole range of complexities to work through. We surround the court with LED just for the tennis. Unfortunately, we couldn't just roll everything out. We had to actually de-rig all of that, rebuild it overnight, cover the court, because even though we're just playing esports on the court, we can't damage the court. So, and we were really adamant we wanted to do it 360 degrees around the stadium. We had a vision to make it different. We had some great a member of my team that is very much in this space, has been for a lot longer than I, but his vision was to have the cube. This cube has never been actually raised or constructed, because the roof opens, obviously, so when the tennis is on. So we had to, and this arena is actually not designed to put a jib out there on the court, because they didn't design that when they built it. So even underneath this arena, we had to, some of the challenges internally, let alone explaining what esports is, what are we actually doing. We get to we had to move the anti-doping portable, to a whole new different location because everything is built for the Australian Open. So we had to we hit a few hurdles, but ultimately, again, with the team from ESL who gave them the challenge, hey, you've got to throw out 100 computers, make sure they work. We don't want anything to not. They really came to the party and, that's how we sort of...
But it's effectively a 72-hour window of we've got a spot here where there's no tennis being played. How can we bring in a new audience? Because you had a specific ticket for this, where you could come in because the game started at 10, but tennis didn't open like on the last day, on the Sunday, didn't open until 2.
That's right. So they're the opportunities that we've always identified. We've done other things. So one of our other arenas, Melbourne Arena, has hosted an NBL game for the last 2 years in week 2. Again, it brings a whole new demographic. We're all about obviously trying to grow the overall audience to the event across the fortnight. We think of the Australian Open now as almost a 3-week event because we do a number of lead-in events as well. But it's maximising the facility and, as you said, like music, that has grown to bring in people come to the tennis just to watch the music. We saw this demographic, everyone's been talking about it, and we saw esports as an entertainment space, and we're able to, we were adamant that it's the right strategy.
And so, combination of gaming, esports, and influencers was probably a good way of describing the Fortnite Summer Smash. The day, so you had the qualifiers on Saturday. You had 500 people playing games to qualify, and then on the Sunday you had, I guess, the final of the 100 that made the final, and then you had effectively like a pro-am. If you're talking about you had a duos with streamers and celebrities. How important was, I guess, getting those streamers or celebrities involved to sort of just get the message out?
Yeah, I think upon reflection, even more so than we thought going in. I think that the combination of the competitive component. Again, we had to agree on the format, which was a lot of discussion.
Because that's the thing. There's no official format.
No, that's right.
And that's, imagine saying, we're going to play a game of cricket, but has anyone come up with the rules yet? Like, that's effectively, to say, we're going to have 6 games, we're going to award points if you get the victory royale, and we're going to report points if you get a kill or whatever it was. You had to come up with that as well in partnership with Epic.
Yeah, and the more and more we discussed the parallels and where we liked the product and the format was the parallels to tennis. So we had 100 players down to 1 in each fortnight round. Obviously tennis is the same with 128 all the way down to 1. We definitely wanted to probably make the competitive component originally more global players. We ended up focusing on identifying great Australian talent and building out those. But we used the Pro-Am obviously to bring in content creators, influencers, and again, you could see there the impact, the reaction on the audience's faces when they saw the likes of Lachlan, Laserbeam, Loser Fruit. They were. It blew the whole business's minds in terms of it brought it to life. In terms of these are the stars that these kids aspire to be. Yep. They watch them all the time, and seeing them in the flesh was no different to seeing Roger Federer or Rafa Nadal walking in.
Would have been funny being in a Tennis Australia meeting and a whip coming into the Aussie Open, and you're there with all other executives. Yeah, we've got Loser Fruit on board. And someone just going, who's Loser? Mr. Fresh Asians signed up. He's one of the best. And again, in-game names. How did you get tennis? How did you get to the partnership of tennis and Epic? How did that alignment come about?
Yeah, it really kicked off with again conversations, and from the outset though we. Determined you can identify pretty quick if you've got a collective or shared alignment, I think. Yep. And from the outset, we both had big ambition to make a spectacle, to make a significant splash in terms of we didn't want to do it half-hearted if we weren't going to, and they were supportive of that. We had to convince them that we were the right partner as well. Even internally, there was a lot of support, but obviously they partner with tennis as well, but we were able to really align, and our brands fit in terms of being playful, being also premium, but also really complementing. We're also supported from the outset a vision on all of our customers, let's call it, on having a healthy balance around whether it's playing tennis, whether it's playing gaming, but also doing the right thing, you know, and, you know, sending the right education message as well. So there was a lot of, support from that end, which was great.
And so what were other, I mean, you had the 2-day event. What were other, I guess, parts that Fortnite were integrated in, the Fortnite, different type one, of the Australian Open? Like how was it, you know, integrated and sort of promoted throughout the 2 weeks?
Yeah, so we, again, with the audience coming through, the site has grown for the Australian Open immensely over a number of years. Even next year we go further. But
I mean, I live in Richmond and I joke that I'm going to one day just walk out the front door and the tennis is going to be there. Like the footprint just keeps growing. Like, you know, Melbourne Olympic Park is where it started, and now it pretty much almost gets all the way to Flinders Street Station with Birrong Ma.
Yeah,
and you know, it's just like it does take over Melbourne for 2 weeks.
Yeah, it does, but it requires different aspects to then not just have the same things. So I think what we were able to, obviously for the 2 weeks, we had an activation, let's call it, in our Garden Square precinct where anyone could play. Originally, we were going to probably use that maybe as a qualifying into the final. Didn't eventuate, and was more probably just a promotional vehicle in the end to illustrate a presence of gaming and cater to, again, the queues there were significant all across the 2 weeks, which was great. Beyond that, though, we worked with Epic around a couple of different things around they built a tennis character, Volley Girl, and released tennis-related items in-game exclusively during the Australian Open. So all of those aspects were really important to us, that it wasn't just a one-off event itself, but more broadly it was also the relationships we wanted to build with players, influencers, creators, because that's the world we've come from in terms of when we talk about the Australian Open. It doesn't happen without the 256 main draw players from around the world. So they're looked after from the moment all year round, essentially. So we took the same approach around ensuring we could get some international players out, and but also then work with the domestic players to ensure their experience was great for them, and that they got content opportunities for their own channels, because we recognise that's what they're seeking.
So this Sunday, I went to this Sunday, and it was like a circus. Like the crowd definitely was, you know, younger. You know, there was parents with kids, and again, those kids had never been to Australian Open, so it's an entree to this bigger world that you guys have. The format of the Sunday was the professional knockout of the 6 games, 100 Victory Royale, and then after that you had the Pro-Am duos, which, you know, if you're a golf fan, it's always the other way around. You do the Pro-Am to warm everyone up. You get footballers and celebrities to play in the Pro-Am, and then the real stuff begins on the Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Whereas, you know, it was flipped around the other way. Do you think? I watched the professional stuff, and then, you know, watched a bit. To me, again, don't have the data, it looked like the fans were super into the competitive stuff and less so into, you know, they were still screaming like hell at particular streamers, but they weren't as engaged when the streamer celebrity duo type thing happened. Did you see that in the numbers and at the event?
Yeah, I think it's that balance between, I think, the broadcast viewers versus your on-site audience as well, or the ticket holders. And we not necessarily get it right with tennis either. I think you can often cater to one, you never get the balance necessarily right. But I think for year one, the education piece and the entertainment piece was critical for us. I think if we just ran a competitive component, you'd get you're right. The engagement was huge around when it got down to the crux, obviously with more prize money in the line on the competitive component. But there were some time constraints and orders we had to get out to run another event a couple of hours after as well, for the public coming in to watch the Aussie Open only a couple of hours after. So there was it was just a call we had to make, and I don't know whether we'd do the same. I think the spectacle of it did mean we actually ended on a high with the colour and movement. It was almost like boxing ring. It sort of felt like with that sort of vibe, but with people in that every year. But that spectacle probably enabled us to finish on a high. But it's that balance.
And so, you did mention, like, again, I'm commenting on the in-arena experience, but you're also broadcasting it. You've got an operation, a broadcast background. What's the difference between running a tennis broadcast event and an esports broadcast event?
It's longer. Well, tennis does go longer, but I think in the sense that the beauty of it is that I think there's actually opportunities, like someone mentioned before, to add value to the coverage going forward. Obviously, we went from scratch just to get the overall event up and running, but I think going forward, the downtime between the actual rounds is where value can come. I mean, Ben's in the audience, we'll hear from him later, was one of our casters, and I echo that thought. I think the esports casters are 1,000 times better than traditional sports commentators because their knowledge and ability to fill on the fly is extraordinary. So that was my one reflection coming in from not having as much esports sort of broadcast knowledge, but I think there's just opportunities to create more pace because I think that currently particularly with when they do play, is that there's so many layers that you can probably unwrap and add to it now, and that's the opportunity. And then the other thing is, so the games themselves were broadcast on the Australian Open Twitch channel, and here you are trying to fit your schedule into the schedule of the tournament, and cool, we've got 72 hours of Margaret Court Arena, but then the other bit, the insight was, what's actually happening on the rest of the world in the esports world when we're running it? Yeah, so there's obviously it was another League of Legends event, I think, on at the same time in another region, which probably overlapped around part, and certainly that's the global picture that I think the whole industry can certainly look at as we going forward. But that's the battle between obviously what traditional sports do well. They elect to go up against each other, or they program it differently, which obviously with tennis up against sort of the Big Bash, and it's an ongoing discussion. But all that's a learning for us to ensure that we're not up against another significant event at the same time. Apparently, there was almost a late inclusion to the Pro-Am. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that? Yeah, well, we were setting up and running the qualifying late into the Saturday night, heading into the final, and the women's final was on at the same time, and Naomi Osaka, who was ultimately went on to win the title, had indicated earlier in the week that she is a Fortnite player, and was so we were certainly hoping that she would take the title, because I think there was an indication we could make really probably create that true intersection, I think, between our event and the gaming event that we were running, with the women's champion being a part of it. It didn't eventuate. She had to go off and do a trophy shoot or fly back to her next event. But I think they're the opportunities and crossovers that are really beneficial if we're able to get, obviously, Nick Kyrgios there he was first in once we announced it, but and was a great part of it as well. But I think that she didn't in the end, but hopefully next year we can get more of those that are around, because we don't know who's going to be there until their results play out. But there's such a crossover. I think there was an article I shared recently of ESPN of how many athletes play different games, and so it would have been the ultimate crossover. Just walk off the court and then pick up the controller and away she goes. Yeah, it would have been, especially we had teams from China, Japan, Korea as well. So I think again that you mentioned with obviously the Fortnite World Cup, the recent winner cutting over to that mainstream. That I think the more of that occurs, and you get the likes of Osaka or anyone that has an interest, can only benefit the overall esports or audience, beneficial for brands, because I think you underplay the education piece on what it is really important to. So any way that anyone can connect with an existing athlete that they know is certainly beneficial, especially when you're in boardrooms trying to justify. There's a whole range of people that you're trying to convince that this is the right direction. So one of the conversations when a brand or a sponsor or someone's trying to get into esports, and you're talking to, a board, old white guys
that don't understand gaming, and again, we're looking at the horrific events of last week back in the US of violence and trying to tenuously link that to games. What was the conversation at tennis around, well, we're getting into esports. Are we worried about the violence factor? I mean, Fortnite, I think, has done a terrific job to take gaming mainstream. You go to an NBA arena and you're seeing kids dancing because they're playing that game. But in between the dancing and the flossing and all those kind of things, they're still shooting other players and it's a battle royale. It does it in a cartoon stylised type manner. I mean, I grew up watching Wile E. Coyote getting his head shot off every week in a cartoon, and I came out okay. What were the conversations at tennis around, we're getting into esports and there's this element that potentially some of the brands might not want to be a part of? Yeah,
I think that's the key, is the really having that discussion around how present it is across all media, all types of media. And I think trying to debunk the theory that gaming itself and exclusively promotes that association. I think you have those discussions, and what we really spoke about and took the view of is that, particularly with events, and as you could see, one of the biggest audience sort of groups were kids with their parents. So we certainly form the belief that the education piece enables the discussion to occur in a major event space, as opposed to them playing themselves alone and just online and away from necessarily the broader view. So I think that's where we took in terms of continually, and I think some of our customer insights from the event were, the biggest beneficiaries were the parents in attendance, because they got a greater understanding of what their kids enjoy, how they can see it come to life in a great social sense as well. And I think that can only promote a greater lesson on education around a healthy balance and understanding the rules and what's good, what's not. And to actually bring it out in the open and really promote that social part.
Yeah, because that is a tough piece for parents, because I know parents that say they don't want their kids playing Fortnite, but if every kid in the school is playing Fortnite, then you're isolating your kid because they're not part of that scene. Yeah. And so understanding that and how important it is from a social behaviour and connectivity, growing up, it's really important.
Yeah, got 2 young kids myself, and they're not at this stage yet, but I think that allowed the discussion to occur around, I definitely believe that events like this can only further demystify gaming and bring it out into the open, and focusing on the competitive side and making it exciting, and the atmosphere and the as you said, the reaction from the kids as you could hear some of it as well. It is just like going to any other sporting event itself. So I think that is a really good experience for them, and we should continually promote it.
And so what did you talked about customer insights before. What did you learn about the audience, the people that turned up specifically for this Fortnite Summer Smash? Yeah, naturally, Fortnite, as it does, skewed to a younger age bracket. So that younger group coming with their parents was an insight we certainly were able to learn more, which still played well into our overall strategy around. We had a sort of $5 kids ticket for the Australian Open itself across the whole 2 weeks. So for us, it is certainly around building entertainment and content that is appealing to that demographic, as well as ensuring that because they're the ticket holders or buyers of sort of the Open in the next sort of 10 plus years. So I think getting them, that being their only Australian Open experiences, we're very comfortable with. As I said, we cater for a lot of other groups and age brackets with different offerings, and if we can have them have a positive experience, then that's certainly what we were trying to aspire to. So you would have done a lot of testing and learning, expanding the music component, sports film festivals, doing different pieces, doing NBL. What are some of the things you took away that you think you might do better or improve on if you were to go down the path of doing it again, or expanding what you're doing in the esports space? Yeah, well, announced earlier would be one. I think we've hopefully proved that it's worthwhile. The overall format and flow, and just general build up. Obviously, the
as everyone has spoken about today, how you build out the characters and the storylines that are behind those influencers or players within the sport itself would be something we just need to create that lead in to ensure. And overall, we'd love to obviously connect it to the broader other global events that are occurring at the time. But we think we've got a strong platform to host a large-scale sort of global competitive gaming format. So, it's certainly an avenue we want to only grow on, because we think as everyone is aware, the audience will grow, and it sort of complements, and we need to be talking to that audience in the manner that they understand.
But even being its first year, it's just hard to go how many people are turning out, how engaged they're going to be, turning up there on the Sunday, and there's people everywhere, and still parts of the precinct weren't opened up, and just simple things like, they're going to be there, they're going to want to buy merch, they're going to want to buy food, and all of those kind of things is something you just learn. How can we better activate around the event and all those kind of things? Because if you would have been selling, Fortnite t-shirts, you would have sold a truckload.
And it all came up in the planning. It got to a point of prioritising and making the show and the spectacle in arena as strong as possible. But they're all the things that are logical in terms of where the growth can come from. I think what it did give us was historically that Sunday and that finals, particularly the Sunday, is quite. It's such an action-packed first week. The first 4 days you get through the Australian Open and half the field's gone, and you don't know where to look. But once you get to the final, obviously it's down to only one game left. It gave energy to that final Sunday that we'd never had before, and that really permeated across the precinct. And that was a particularly, even anecdotally, to enable our whole business to bring in all the key execs that roll in for the finals. Every one of them rolled down the corridor to look what was happening, and because they could obviously hear it, and that energy that was across the site, particularly with a youthful audience, gave our event and our a whole new different perspective, which was really healthy.
We talked about in the previous panel around participants to fans. I think you were telling me before about actually almost seeing that in action with fans turning up with their controllers. Why were people turning up with their own controllers? Well,
there was we normally see fans turn up with tennis balls and lean over the barriers to get them signed, but the fans at this event were bringing their controllers to get signed by the players themselves and leaning over. So it was, not just, you don't expect that going in. You don't know what to look for, but that was certainly one that, surprised us, but in a great way. That's just, we had so many analogies, I think, as we unpacked what we needed to deliver, the parallels to tennis around singles and doubles, solos and duos, having, the PC or consoles, peripherals, just like rackets and strings and balls and needing a net, all the parallels to running our event, which is in our nature and our core, we just had to do with different technology.
But the bit that, I think having those moments of, it's almost like that kid is now a fan. Yeah. Like they've gone from being a gamer and they're playing in the same, and that's the business you're in tennis. Like, how do we get them into the precinct? How do we get them watch a game? Whether it's watching Nick Kyrgios or Ash Barty or Dylan Alcott, and that's how they become a fan. Like, to be able to see that and go, yep, I'm locked in, and whether that kid is now going to follow Mr. Fresh Asian everywhere because of that, or, follow that sport in a harder manner, it's really important. Yeah, well, we underestimated, I think, just that passion that the audience exhibited. We had, Laserbeam, I think, took off his own accord to just sit in the stands and try and watch, and very quickly he was mobbed straight away, and the whole crowd just flocked to him, and suddenly we had a different scenario on our hands in terms of, having to move these stars around the precinct very quickly. But as you saw, they were in the galleys and just following them everywhere and not letting them, just like, Nadal and Serena, get followed from practice court to wherever they are going next. So it was, it was really exciting, I think, to see, and that stuff you can't necessarily plan for.
New workshops on audience, content, distribution, valuation, and pitch following Sports Geek's Digital to Dollars process. Go to digitaltodollars.com.
Thanks again to Robbo Gorman. You can go check out this episode at sportsgeekhq.com/245 or go to sgesports.com. If you're a new listener from the Money in Esports series, please be aware that Sports Geek is a regular podcast. Over 240 episodes now with a bunch of different guests, I should say, across the world of sports, technology, digital and marketing, with a few esports guests sprinkled in as well. So we'd love for you to come on board. Search for Sports Geek in the podcast platforms that you use. Until next time, hopefully we'll see you at MEO. But until then, you've been listening to the Money in Sport esports series brought to you by Sports Geek. My name is Sean Callanan. Look forward to speaking to you again tomorrow when we talk about the McLaren Shadow Project.
Join Sports Geek Nation access to exclusive Slack and Facebook groups with regular Q&A sessions with Sean Callanan. Go to sportsgeeknation.com to join. Need help with your digital rate card? Not sure how to price your assets? Is there a disconnect between digital and commercial? That is where Sean works best, in digital divorce counselor mode. Book a time for a call with Sean to discuss the Sports Geek process. Go to sportsgeekhq.com/phone call.
Go to sportsgeekhq.com for more sports digital marketing resources.